Welcome back to the Atlas Solutions Podcast. My name's Brian. He's Chad, and today we have some new iOS and iPadOS news, I believe. Chad?
Yeah. So people are finally starting to get the stuff that was released a couple of weeks ago. I have yet to buy any of the new stuff, but my neighbors got their iPhone 13s yesterday or a couple days ago, I guess. The iOS 15 updates have been out for a little bit, so we've been playing with them and had a little bit of time to go over them. So as we usually talk about, we're not a rumor site. We kind of go live with like, okay, this is what people are dealing with today. These are the new features you can use today. And we're going to talk about a couple of those. So number one, the focus feature. I talked about this before, about how excited I was, and I've been excited about it just because of the nature of our business. And I think for a lot of people's businesses, and even personal lives, you want to have an ability to communicate with people to say, hey, I am not able to text you back right now for a reason other than I'm driving. So the driving feature has been out for a long time, and it's great. Not only helps with safety driving, but also lets somebody know, hopefully they're reasonable enough to say, oh, the person's driving. I wouldn't expect a text back. So the new focus feature is out on iOS 15, and you can now have custom focus groups and notifications. So for instance, you could say, hey, I'm at work, I can't respond. So you could set that group up to go to friends and family, to say, hey, I'm in a meeting, or I'm in at work or whatever. And on the flip side, you can have an automation set to turn your focus to be personal. So, oh, I'm home, I'm with my family, and you can tweak those automations to set up to where when you arrive at home, it turns on family focus. And basically what's going to happen is when someone texts you, a client or whatever, and you're at home or you're on vacation or you're whatever setup you have, it's just going to say, Chad's not receiving notifications right now. He's on vacation, or set his time to family focus mode. The biggest disappointment for me, and we talked about this just before the podcast started, was I was hoping to be able to get a custom notification to say, hey, I'm not available right now, but if you need something, text this number or call this number for support for my company. And the only one you can do that, but only in driving mode. And you can even make custom notifications, but you're not allowed at this point in time to do a custom response. You just get the little purple text at the bottom saying Chad's notifications are off, so he's not going to see this message. So the feature's there, it's just not fully functional as far as being able to customize the response. So hopefully we'll see that. At least I want to see that. I know not everybody wants that detailed of a feature, but yeah, great idea from Apple, I think, just in general, to kind of get the world out of like, I need to hear back immediately mode. And I'm guilty of that. I mean, I pride myself in being quick to responding to people and always responding to people. Cause we just live in a world where we're inundated with text. And I think now with some of the stuff that Apple has added as far as, your how much time you've spent on your phone, how many times you've picked up your phone. I'm blanking on the name of the app right now.
Screen time.
What am I thinking of, Brian? Yeah, screen time. So with screen time, you've been able to see, let me pull it up here.
Yeah, screen time will let you see like how often you've been on what apps, and those, they want you to be healthy. They want you to use their phones.
Right.
But they don't want you to be too addicted to them, apparently. That's
and the nice thing about Apple is like they want you to use, like you said, the phone, but they don't really have an interest like Google and Facebook for you to stay on the phone all the time. As long as you buy this piece of hardware, you're good. So for example, mine, just to kind of be candid about mine, it says, I use a daily average on my phone 4 hours and 44 minutes. So you can see all your activity. You can go on the day, on the week. You can see the most used apps. So for me, it's typically Facebook, Instagram, the Maps app I use a lot because I drive, Safari, Mail, Music, Messages, kind of the typical stuff. And then you see also the pickups. Like on Monday, I picked up my phone 123 times in the day. Oh. So, so this has been out for quite a while already. You can see on average, I get 230 messages a day. And that's a combination of messages, Slack, Asana, news, and that sort of thing. Wow. And that actually takes me kind of to the next topic I wanted to talk about, which is the notification summary. This is by far my favorite feature of iOS 15. And, Brian, you and I were talking about before, these operating systems are so mature. They've got so much. We're not seeing those same changes that we were in the early days of the iPhone when it's like stuff that has never been seen before. It's like now we're kind of finding a way to say, okay, well, how can we make these things better? Well, notification summary is awesome. So the idea behind it is, okay, I want to hear about that news article or that local news story, but I don't need to hear about it at 10:45 in the morning when I'm in the middle of a meeting. I don't need to get notified about that. So notification summary basically says you choose the notification and I'm going to hold off on that type of notification until you're ready. And you can decide, the day and time, maybe 2 times a day or whatever, like 1 in the morning, maybe 1 in the evening to get notified. So for example, I put the news app in there. So I was just getting totally inundated with news app, but just, this local thing happened. Traffic on 77's bad or whatever it is. And you can still go look at it. But for me, I put things in there like podcast notifications, Peacock, verse of the day, different things that I would put in there for me. And then in the evening or whenever I'm ready, I can go and say, okay, what happened in the news today? Awesome feature. Because that is reducing those pickups. It's reducing the times I'm looking at my watch just to see like, the coffee shop down the street is flooded. So, okay, big deal, right?
Sure.
So that's one of my favorite ones. Another feature we talked about bringing up was shared FaceTime. This is a game changer for people that don't have an iPhone. You're able to send a link, sort of like a Zoom link. And, I recommend Zoom. I think, Brian, you and I have been using Zoom for years. And when the pandemic hit, everybody was like, hey, have you guys ever heard of Zoom? Like, oh, I mean, of course, we've been using it forever. But the nice thing about Zoom is you can just send a link, you click on it. As long as you have the app, you're good. FaceTime can now do the same thing. So somebody with a non-Apple phone can receive a FaceTime call with that link. Next, kind of big overhaul in Safari, total redesign of the UX of Safari. So, Brian, what's your first thought on the new layout with Safari?
The Safari thing, maybe it shows that I'm getting old, but when you change something I use every day constantly in such a dramatic way, it creates a emotional response sometimes. So I was very upset to say when I first, and I heard the drama. So through the beta process, and we don't have to get too far into this, I heard a lot of news about Safari. They keep breaking Safari and making all these changes. I think they did some stuff and they rolled it back because there was like an outcry in the beta community about what was happening. But the hardest thing for me to get used to is the URL bar at the bottom.
Sure.
And it makes sense from a typing standpoint, like where your thumbs are when you're using your phone. Mm-hmm. Makes a ton of sense.
Yep.
But my old man brain just could not grasp that. It took me a couple of days to get the hang of it. And that's, I guess, with any new thing. But
well, and of course, I don't have the instructions right in front of me, but there is a way to go back. You can switch it to go back to the top.
You can go back classic. But I didn't want to be that guy. I was like, what? I'm going to just live in this world because this is the new thing, right? This is what Apple
Apple knows best, right?
But my favorite by far feature is tab groups. So, we both probably, I have many tabs open constantly all day, every day. But being able to group those into like, this is maybe a personal tab group or a work tab group or a church tab, whatever you're dealing with. You can kind of jump around and not see 30 tabs at one time or 100 tabs at one time, but kind of, again, it goes back to the focus thing. I think this is the area the sandbox I'm in right now.
Totally. Well, I have historically used, people use computers in ways that they're not intended, and everybody's guilty of it. And one of the ways I've kind of used it is Safari tabs, is particularly on my iOS devices. I don't do it on my computer, but on my iOS device, if I'm in the car or I'm, on a trip or something, I just happen to flip open an article or maybe something on Amazon I'm interested in buying, or tickets to a concert or something that I'm like, I don't need that now, but I'm going to remember. I'll leave that tab open.
Yep.
And I'll come back. Well, they accumulate, like right now, this morning I was actually looking, and I have like a funny video that I want to share with my brother at some point. Some products I was looking at buying for customers, the new flying Amazon camera, which we're going to talk about in the next episode, and, whatever I was looking at last. And so, being able to group those tabs, I could have a group, that look at later or whatever.
Yeah.
But the other thing to kind of use it to go back to how it was intended, or maybe some of the features that Apple gives us, is to be able to share some of that stuff to a note or even to a reminder. That's probably a better use of it, because just a warning, if you're using your iPhone and you use it for that type of purpose, like I'm doing, if your iPhone crashes or you drop your iPhone or you lose it, you might be able to get it back if you do some work in iCloud tabs. Maybe you could still find the URLs. Maybe the history's there. But just to be safe, it's probably better to put it in a place like, I'm going to make a note of this product that I want to buy for my customer, or I'm going to make a note of that funny video or whatever, or go ahead and just share it to my brother right away. So we do need to, as far as learning how to use these new UX features, I do think you did the right thing. I'm doing the right thing. Just go ahead and try it for a little while. Like natural scrolling was one that people hated. People hated natural scrolling. And that's like when you scroll, it's just backwards. It's like flying an airplane. You pull back and you go up, and it just was backwards for people. But
it's like touching the screen and moving it up. It's what your brain would want to do if you were actually touching it and not just using the scroll wheel on a mouse, right?
Yeah. And that was the foresight of UX developers 10 years ago to say, okay, these touchable devices are coming. These iPads and these iPhones are coming, and people got to get away from the mindset of having a mouse with like a,
And I still get confused. Like going to a Windows system, a lot of times I'll be like, well, which way is the right way? I'll do it the way I think it needs to go, and it doesn't work the way I think it should anymore. Off the bat. So,
and we're not going to name names on these customers, but we still have some people that do it backwards, and their brains are backwards, and they put their docks on the side and all that weird stuff. So, fun stuff. So, the last one we had talked about was the live text. So, live text is pretty interesting. I think this is one of those things that I have subconsciously been waiting for. And I think there's going to be a lot of use cases for it, but it's one of those things we have to get used to. Like, to give a kind of an example, the QR code has been around for a long time. And I remember when the QR code kind of like showed up, and then it like nobody really used it because, quite honestly, the phones and the devices to scan the QR codes were not good enough. They weren't fast enough. They weren't useful enough. So now you can scan a QR code with any device just by opening your camera. So on an iPhone, you open a camera, scan the QR code. And in fact, I was at a restaurant this weekend, and when you scan the QR code on iOS 15, it floats around and you can see click that particular QR code, so you can even narrow in on that. I think with the live text, and to explain those who don't know, you can literally take a picture, sort of. You can kind of like scan a road sign or a restaurant menu or a page out of a book, and it will convert that text into actual text on your computer that you could paste in somewhere else. So if you're doing a research paper and you want to quote something from a book that's right in front of you, you can literally just scan it, copy the text, paste it into your report. And I mean, that's just amazing. Those little things that, yeah, you could have Googled it and found it online and copy and paste, but maybe you can't. Maybe it's a book that's a little out there, hard to find. So really, really cool features. Lastly, we just wanted to talk about the stuff that is still trickling out. So we've got the iPhones. Some of the new iPad minis and stuff are already hitting people's hands and have for the last few weeks. But we're still waiting on the Apple Watch, and we're also waiting on Monterey to be released. No date yet on Monterey, but the Apple Watch is going to go on pre-order this Friday. So in just a couple days, you're going to be able to pre-order that Apple Watch 7. The question that is always posed when a new thing comes out is, should you get it? And once again, I think the answer is it depends on where you are in your life cycle of your device. I have an Apple Watch 6, and it's great. I mean, honestly, I don't have any problems with it. It's not slow, and the upgraded features on the 7 are not so compelling. But I do think anybody less than a 6, 5 and below, it's a great upgrade.
Yeah.
The 6 was a great upgrade. There are a few little things in the new Apple Watch. And if you want more information, go check the Apple website out. And we actually released a blog also that kind of goes into depth on these individual upgrades. But I can't think of the term, but as devices get better at preventing water, there's also another level of dust prevention. So these things are dust proof essentially, so that you can basically take it to a beach or, on a hike where there's dust flying up everywhere, and there's not going to get stuff inside your components. It's going to be real tight. And so basically you can wear your Apple Watch anywhere, in the shower, in the pool, on a hike, out in the sand with your kids or whatever, and it's basically going to be fine. So that is pretty cool. The 6 you could basically do that with, and I forget when they added water resistance, but several versions ago.
I think 5 months. Yeah, I go swimming with mine all the time.
Yeah, and it's cool. Like, it's actually weird. To be honest, the first time I got in the pool with mine, I thought, I'm just waiting for it to fry or just go black or something. And it did a good job, but this one's like another level. So again, if you're in the market, if your watch is a little bit slow, the same thing with the iPhone as well. There's a case to be made about keeping on the latest version of the iPhone, especially with how much people use phones nowadays. It's like you live on this thing. So as we've kind of talked about earlier, but if you're in the market for a watch and you've got maybe a 5 or less and it's a little slow, the 7's a great buy. Cool new colors. All the wristbands work. So you can buy a new one, grab a new color,
That's probably my favorite thing about the Apple Watch upgrades is they haven't, and eventually they will, but there's so many watch bands out there.
Yeah.
And every time you get a new one, you get a new watch band. But if you have a lot, they're not cheap, especially the Apple ones. So the fact that they haven't made you switch to a new, like a 30-pin watch connector or something,
Right. Yeah. And I'm sure one day that'll come. That may be the reason, a lot of talk is swirling around about this release with iOS 15 and with the stuff, the watches and the phones. It was sort of a lackluster release. But there's people always say that. People are always disappointed with Apple's releases, and then there they are in line buying the new iPhone. So, the world is in sort of a weird place right now. So getting these materials is not as easy. And I think Apple's probably just kind of riding it out just to say, you know what? We release stuff every year. It's okay if we release something. It's still great. It's still, these features we just talked about are not necessarily life-changing, but I can tell you firsthand, notification summary has saved me probably 15 minutes a day of looking at wasted notifications I didn't have any business looking at. So there you go. That's a good 2 hours a week I'm getting back in my life. So check that out. Check out the next episode. We're going to be talking about the new Amazon release from Ring with the flying camera. So you're definitely going to want to check that one out.
Stay tuned.
So. Awesome. We'll talk to you guys next time.